for a very important question. It's also my personal question,
Yes.
actually, about the movement of the conductor when they conduct the band. Like they have to move themselves, their hands high up to the sky, their head move around. Why do they have to like move their body like that?
Well, you know, if you have let's say a big chord that goes BOOM, let's say a really big orchestral sound, just imagine the biggest sound you can imagine. If you do this, if you stand there, if you go, they will not play like that. They really won't. Even though it might say in the music, it might say play as loudly as you can or whatever. But if the conductor goes, they won't. If the conductor goes like that, then they respond to that. And they really do. Because there was this one time where I conducted the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, and I felt that they were a really good orchestra, and that I didn't have to do that much physically. So I try to limit my physical activities to minimal. But as it turned out, the orchestra also played the same way. So they were playing like this. You know, so the moment that I actually started to be a bit more physical and more wild with my gestures, of course, when the music, you know, sort of required it, then the orchestra immediately responded to that. That's why it's important for the conductor to go with the music, because of course if you show that you're with the music, that you're breathing the music, that you are the music, then chances are the orchestra will respond the same way.
That is right. And each conductor has their own style, right? What about yourself? Style of music or style of conducting?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I have to say that I'm when it comes to styles, I'm most accustomed to the stylistic practices of music of the classical, Renaissance, and Baroque periods. But if you're asking about my style as a conductor, as in physically, then I would have to say that usually I prefer not to do too much. Because, first of all, it makes you look like you're acting, and it's just redundant. Because, you know, I think one of the questions that people ask is, you know, does the conductor really have to do that? Mm-hmm. You know, is it necessary? Is it, you know, the musicians, they have the music in front of them. Do they really have to do all that much? And the answer is, sometimes the answer is no. The conductor doesn't have to do that much. And sometimes the conductor is simply acting just to show off. And I try not to do that, but I try to do enough to inspire the musicians, but still to keep that honesty as well. I think that's for me, that's what's important.
Mm-hmm. Another question that I would like to know is that do the music player can really play if without conductor in front of them?
Yes. It depends on how many musicians we're talking about, because of course back in the classical era, orchestras were much smaller than they are today, or than they are in the Romantic era a couple of 100 years later. So if we're talking about, let's say in classical or Baroque music, when you have only 10 or 20 musicians, then usually they can actually just follow the concertmaster, the lead violinist. They can do that without the conductor. But of course, the interpretation also has to come from somebody. It can come from many musicians collectively, or it can come from one person. But in the end, there has to be a leader, because otherwise there's no way that an orchestra will start in time. There's no way that 20 people can clap at the same time without somebody giving a cue. It's just not possible, because, you know, unless you can read people's minds. So, but of course, when it comes to music of later eras of Romantic period, or even Beethoven, which is still sort of classical but sort of going into Romantic, then you have too many musicians to make music without a conductor, because there are time changes and there are things like that which a conductor is supposed to lead.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever conducted the bands or the music style that you think you were not good at?
I have, but I try not to, because I think at this point in my career, it's very important for me to stick to the things that I'm good at or I'm accustomed to. And so I try not to do modern music or too much romantic music. I think this is why my career has been going quite well, because I think it's important for young artists to realize that they cannot just accept everything all the time, that they cannot accept everything that's offered to them all the time. They have to consider the possibility that they might do a bad job, and if they do a bad job, then that could be the end of their career. And so that's why I haven't been doing too much of things that I don't think I'm good at.
Mm-hmm. And you are now working for the agency, right?
Yes.
What is?
The agency at the moment is Columbia Artists in New York, and they represent many world famous people. For example, Seiji Ozawa, which is one of the probably the most well-known Japanese conductor in the world. Which means that they offer me, jobs, and then I choose whether to accept them or not. And I was the assistant conductor of this opera production back then, and I was supposed to get a couple of performances. But the thing is, being the assistant, you're not really supposed to exert or to have your own ideas, musical ideas.
ASEAN TV, 10 nations, one vision.